In 1900, one American city stood above all others in wealth and promise: Galveston, Texas, the third richest city per capita in the entire United States. They called it the New York of the South, and for good reason. 37,000 souls lived in paradise. A thriving port where fortunes were made daily. Cotton, lumber, and dreams flowed through its streets like rivers of gold. But this jewel of American prosperity sat on nature's most dangerous throne, a barrier island, just 8 feet above the hungry sea. The residents laughed at hurricane warnings. Their city was too successful to fail, too prosperous, too blessed by geography and God. Then came September 8th, 1900. Citizens woke to find their streets flooded with unusually high tides. Still, they felt safe. Still, they believed their prosperity would protect them. They had no idea they were about to witness America's deadliest natural disaster. If you're finding value in this, hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. On September 6th, 1800, a storm was brewing in the Gulf of Mexico that would reshape American history. Isaac Klein, Galveston's chief Weather Bureau meteorologist, received the first reports. A massive hurricane was moving through the Gulf, but Klein had a theory. He believed Galveston's location made it immune to devastating hurricanes. Meanwhile, Cuban meteorologists were frantically sending warnings to American officials. Their message was urgent and terrifying. The Cubans had tracked this storm. They knew its power. They begged America to take action. American officials dismissed these warnings entirely. They refused to believe Cuban science could surpass American expertise. On September 7th, strange signs appeared. The Gulf began producing abnormal swells that crashed against Galveston shores. The barometric pressure started rising and falling in dangerous patterns. Nature was screaming warnings. Local residents noticed something was wrong. The air felt different. The sky looked menacing. But Isaac Klein made a decision that would haunt American meteorology forever. Instead of issuing a hurricane warning, he chose to announce only a minor storm warning. His reasoning was simple, but deadly. He wanted to avoid causing panic in the prosperous city. While Klein downplayed the threat, the most powerful hurricane in American history was bearing down on Galveston. The storm everyone ignored was about to prove that nature doesn't negotiate with human arrogance. September 8th, 1899. 6 a.m. Galveston woke to howling winds and rising water. By noon, the winds reached 145 miles per hour. Windows exploded. Roofs vanished into the chaos. Then came the storm surge. 15 feet of ocean swallowed the island whole. Galveston began to disappear. The bridges connecting Galveston to the mainland snapped like matchsticks. 8,000 people were now trapped on a sinking island. Telegraph lines went dead. The outside world lost contact with Galveston, and the island had vanished from existence. At the Ursuline convent, 10 nuns faced an impossible choice. 90 orphaned children in their care. Nowhere to run. The nuns made a desperate decision. They tied themselves to the children with clothesline. If they died, they would die together. The convent walls collapsed. The surge swept them all away. Only 3 children would survive that horrific night. Isaac Klein, the weatherman who dismissed the warnings, watched helplessly as his own world crumbled. His pregnant wife, Cora, was trapped in their collapsing home. The man who predicted weather couldn't predict this tragedy. Cora Klein drowned that night. The meteorologist's expertise meant nothing against nature's fury. By midnight, most of Galveston lay underwater. The city of 40,000 had become a floating graveyard. When dawn broke on September 9th, survivors would discover a horror beyond imagination. The real nightmare was just beginning. When the sun rose on September 9th, 1900, Galveston had become America's largest graveyard. Over 8,000 souls had perished in a single night. Entire bloodlines erased from existence. Survivors wandered through what had been their neighborhoods, searching for any trace of the lives they'd known. Where grand Victorian mansions once stood, only splinters of wood and shattered dreams remained. Bodies lay everywhere, trapped under debris, tangled in tree branches, scattered across the beach like driftwood. The dead were stacked like cordwood in makeshift morgues. Men, women, children, families who died together. Identification was nearly impossible. The hurricane had stripped away not just lives, but identities. Desperate officials loaded bodies onto barges, hoping the Gulf would become their final resting place. But the sea rejected its burden. Within days, the tide brought them all back. With no other choice, Galveston became a city of funeral pyres. The fires burned for weeks, smoke columns visible from ships 20 miles out at sea. The acrid smell of death hung over the island like a shroud that refused to lift. For the survivors, every breath was a reminder of the 8,000 who would never breathe again. But from this city of the dead, an incredible act of defiance was about to rise. From the ashes of America's deadliest natural disaster, Galveston would attempt something no city had ever dared before. They would raise an entire city 17 feet into the sky using nothing but sand, concrete, and sheer human determination. The grade-raising project began in 1903. Every building, every street, every foundation would be lifted from the grave. 16 million cubic yards of sand were pumped from Galveston Bay, enough to bury a football field 4 miles deep. Houses were jacked up on stilts while millions of tons of sand flowed beneath them like concrete rivers. But the sand was only half the battle. To truly defy nature, they would need to build a wall that could stop the ocean itself. The Galveston seawall rose 17 feet above mean low tide, stretching over 3 miles along the Gulf of Mexico. Each section weighed hundreds of tons, designed with a curved face to deflect hurricane waves back into the sea. The project took 7 years to complete and cost over $1 million, a fortune that would equal $30 million today. Meanwhile, the tragedy that built this wall was already reshaping how America tracked storms. The Weather Bureau's failures in 1900 led to the creation of hurricane warnings and the modern National Weather Service. Yet 6 years later, the San Francisco earthquake captured headlines worldwide, while Galveston's greater tragedy faded from memory. Today, that seawall still stands, having weathered over a century of hurricanes, including Ike in 2008. 8,000 lives were lost, but their sacrifice built the engineering marvel that saved thousands more. If this opened your eyes to America's forgotten catastrophe, smash that like button and subscribe for more